I'm Marianna Portela, your storyteller, and this is Goddess, Witch, Woman, a Healing Stories podcast. Come, sit by the fire. The hour is now, and the veil between the worlds is thin. We gather at a threshold on the cusp of story and memory and myth and history. I've been talking about goddesses on our last episodes, but now I want to take you into a new turn of the spiral. In the shifting glow of embers, you may take a glimpse of her, the one they call witch. But what makes a witch? Is it the pointed hat, the broom, the black cat, potions, cauldrons, warts and all? That is a question that's followed us for centuries. Sometimes it has been whispered, "Is she a witch?" Sometimes it has been screamed into burning flames. It is a question that is older than scriptures, and it has been scratched on the walls of prison cells, and it has been carved into our collective memory. Women have been called witch, harlot, temptress, bitch, whore, spinster, gossiper, lunatic, heretic, hag, crone, all the greatest hits. We have been accused, punished, exiled, executed. We have been hunted for our knowledge, for our beauty, for our lack of beauty, for our solitude, for stubbornness, for bleeding every month, for knowing how to heal someone, for knowing anything, for laughing too loud, for refusing to submit, for midwifing birth, for tending to the dying, for talking to animals, for refusing to get married, for speaking to spirits, for speaking at all. For that, we have been burned at the stake, drowned in rivers, stoned in village squares. We have been stripped of our names and branded in the name of something that called itself holy. Our bones have been buried under church floors, and our stories have been turned into warning tales. A woman's laughter turned into a witch's cackle. And yet, the making of a witch is also in how she rides the mortar and pestle across the sky, how she lives in a hut that spins on chicken legs, how she grows claws beneath her skirts, how she is the midwife who chants at the threshold of life, death, life. She is in the shadow of the forest, and she knows the names of all the plants and all the living creatures. She is the wind that knots your hair. She is the howl in the dark. She is the dream we keep having. She has many names. She is Baba Yaga, Keridwen, Lilith, Hecate, Circe, Medea, the evil stepmother with the apple. She is the bone woman. She is the stitch in the frog's mouth. A bruja, la bruja, la curandera, the wise one, la que sabe, the one who knows. And she has been with us since the beginning. In myth and legend, at the crossroads, she's the wild crone that's deep in the forest. She's brewing enchantments. She's the village wise woman that carries herbs in her apron. Across continents and centuries, the figure of the witch circles in and out of our human stories. In Japan, she shapeshifts into a fox. In India, she might be worshipped as a Devi or feared as a Dayan, goddess or demon, and that depends on the village, the phases of the moon, the story that's being told. In Papua New Guinea, women are still tortured and persecuted under the suspicion of being witches. In Brazil, my home country, we have the cuca. She's terrifying. She's an old witch of children's tales. She's part crocodile and part crone, and she's feared and invoked to frighten naughty children. In the Caribbean, she lives through the obeah, which is a tradition that was outlawed by colonial rule and still survives in rituals, in songs, in healing. In parts of the Middle East, you still have the evil eye. It remains like a force to be warded off. And when women are blamed for casting the evil eye, it still bears a lot of the weight of superstition and fear. Among many indigenous nations, the witch was once the revered medicine woman, the midwife, the dreamer, the seer, and until colonizers came with crosses, with laws, and with flames, she was there. But what is a witch truly? I would say she is a shadow in the moonlight. She's the old grandmother of folk tale. She's the healer. She's the trickster. She is the outcast. She's a mirror of something very, very powerful and deeply, deeply human. She's not just a figure of the past or of folk tales or folklore. She is a mirror of our own psyche. She is a symbol, and that symbol carries the weight of society's fears and desires of controlling, especially women. The witch is an ancestral memory passed down through the sacred images that, sacred and mysterious images that we call myth and fairy tale. Those are codes. Witch is also held as an accusation, a word that holds power, and it's used to shame, to silence, and used to ignite flames around people who were considered too strange, too clever, too much, too weird, especially women. She lives on in our language. We say to cast a spell, to glamour, to hex. The very word witch is said to come from wit, meaning wise. But in time, the meaning of witch was twisted by fear. Loads of feminists and some storytellers will say that, like the word wild, the word witch has come to be understood as something pejorative. Because before we had one god religions, this was a calling, a name for women healers, for wise ones. She haunts us. She haunts houses. She haunts dreams. And what makes her dangerous still is not just what she does, it is what she represents. And that is female rebellion, nonconformity, intuition, and power that does not make sense to patriarchal society. Because when patriarchal order really spread in the world, it defined the independent woman as a threat. So think midwives, herbalists, women who own their own land, unmarried women, widows. They all became suspicious. The wise witch that was once honored was now, and I'm talking medieval times, she was now recast as a wicked one. Even the word hag, which is used as a slur to older women, that came from Hagia. That means holy, the sacred grandmother. Now there are many women reclaiming these words. You can check the book Hagitude by Sharon Blackie and Crones Don't Whine by Jean Chinot de Bolin. Those are exceptional books that teach us the sacredness of older women. Don't worry, I'll put the recommendations on the episode description. I have loads of recommendations, so check it out. And when we talk about this turning of the wise woman into the fearsome woman, I think maybe no figure really captures this shift quite like Hecate. She started as a powerful goddess, a guide between worlds, a keeper of crossroads, a light in the dark. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know about Hecate already. And if you haven't, don't worry, you can go listen after this episode. You are welcome. But like so many ancient goddesses, Hecate got recast to those minds in medieval times. They were very fearful. So those powers became something to dread. So this triple-faced guardian turned into this stuff of nightmares. And it's what happens when a type of power does not fit the system. It gets rewritten as fear. And we see this happening over and over and over and over again in the history of the world. It's happening right now. And yet, even through centuries of demonization, Hecate's image never disappeared. She's still there because that's what witches do, and goddesses. They stand at the edges. They hold the in-between. Hecate reminds us that the witch at heart is a guardian of thresholds, of the edge, those borderlands of change and transformation. So if myth gave us the image of the witch as this ancient guardian, history gives us the memory of the witch as a victim and a survivor. There was a time, not that long ago, honestly, that when just being called a witch put a target on your back. My cat is meowing right now. Yes, I know. In Europe and far beyond, the witchcraft became like this main crime during medieval times, a moral panic that spiraled, and anyone, but mostly women, who lived differently, who spoke out, who healed, who danced, could be accused. So we're talking about tens of thousands, and some scholars talk now about 9 million people. Yes, 9 million were persecuted, tortured, burned, hanged, drowned. And entire villages watched the smoke rise again and again, generation after generation. And some historians call it a gendercide. And I would say it's a Holocaust of women that barely gets mentioned. Some thinkers and scholars would say that this is a trauma that's still in our bones. It is a cultural memory of the fire and of the loss. And let's be real, this lingers. Think of those years, centuries really, as one long, smoky night of erasure. The witch hunts cast a very wide shadow. It still touches us to this day. It is a collective female wound, the witch wound. That famous quote we now see in t-shirts and pins, you must have come across it, that says, "We are the granddaughters of the witches you could not burn." But are we? I tend to think that we are the granddaughters of the ones who were burned as much as the ones who did not get burned. I think to be called a witch back then was to become the scapegoat, the catch-all curse for everything that went wrong. So defending yourself, impossible. Denying it, proof of guilt. Confess, confirm guilt. If you had a birthmark, a mole, a bad-tempered cat, you're guilty. Honestly, if your neighbor's cow would sneeze sideways, you'd be at the stake by dinner time. So, because this wasn't just about superstition, it was about control and fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of nature, control of women's bodies, fear of women's power, a power that's not available to or for men. Fear of anything wild, dark, instinctive, magical. Silvia Federici, and I urge you to read her work. She said it best. Those who persecuted witches were terrified of them, not because witches were dangerous, but because they were free. And so the word witch becomes an accusation, a weapon. It means a dangerous woman. She doesn't belong. Blame her, burn her. And the church and its authorities didn't exactly send apology cards when the fires died down. Are we still waiting for an apology? I don't know. I know the smoke may have cleared, but let's not pretend it is gone. This truly still lingers in women's collective psyche. We can call it the witch wound. We all carry it. And it really echoes in how we shrink ourselves. The names we are still called: witch, bitch, unlovable, cunt. Those old words are very sticky. And even now, deep down, many of us will still hear that ancient whisper, very patriarchal whisper that says, be small, be quiet, or they will come for you next. And yet, the story does not end in ashes. What history tried to burn, story kept smoldering. The witch did not die. She just slipped into fantasy. She hid herself in fairy tales and bedtime rhymes. Sometimes she came back wicked, sometimes wise, but always powerful. She is the cackling hag in the gingerbread house. Yes, but she's also the fairy godmother with the glittery wand. She is Elphaba and Glinda. She is the apple poisoner and the transformation specialist. This ambiguity I think, is a bit of a PR problem for witches, sure, but the archetype survived. She became the keeper of everything we weren't allowed to speak of. Women's anger, women's desire, intuition, healing, nonconformity. She holds the key to both comfort and chaos, safety and wildness. Popular culture tried to cartoon the witch. The commercial Halloween stuff, all warts and wails and broomsticks. But under all that costume, the real witch didn't disappear. She just changed outfits. You will find her hiding in Shakespearean forests and Disney Technicolor sugary tales. She has been banned from the town squares, so she set up camp in our collective dreams and fantasies. She's waiting, watching, biding her time. And guess what? Her time is now. Our time is now. Something is shifting. The spiral turns again. The witch is stepping out of the shadows and just brushing off centuries of soot. These days, more and more of us are reclaiming her not as a devilish creature, but as divine. We don't see the witch as a threat, but as a truth, even though truth is definitely threatening. Writers, scholars, poets, priestesses, women at kitchen tables and in classrooms, we are all piercing her back together. We are gathering the herbal wisdom, the moonlit dances, the covens, the menstrual rituals, the stories our grandmothers whispered, that disguised wisdom that fairy and folk tales do contain. We are remembering the cunning women, the wart conners, the midwives with their poultices and power of the crown. And yes, we are remembering the burning times. We are speaking of what was done to be witnesses of our own stories. I talk about the burnings and my cat goes off. Oh my God. So we are speaking of what was done to us. So we are witnesses of our own history, because only through remembering we can reclaim. And let's be real, the word witch has had a bit of a makeover lately. It's spoken with a sort of pride now by those of us who plant things, stir things, chant things. Those of us who honor the earth, the moon, the sun. We speak our truth, and we refuse to play nice with systems that were never built for us anyway. Today's witch is an outsider, and that's the point. She's tuned into mystery, to nature, to truth. She wears her pointy hat playfully. I know I do. I have plenty of pointed hats. Our cauldrons are less eye of newt and more brew your own healing. The shame is being stirred out and the power is being stirred in. At least for some, that is the case. So here we are at this threshold, at this place where story and memory and myth meets you through my microphone. And this podcast, I think of it as a kind of witch's circle. No bubbling potions, maybe metaphorically. But here in this space, I want to share knowledge. I want to stir memory, and I want to invite the magic back in. And as my beloved teacher, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes wrote, the ogress, the witch, the wild nature, the very things seen as awful in women are the blessed things women need to retrieve and bring to the surface. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to remember the old stories. We're going to uncover what's been hidden, what's been buried. We're going to pull the threads of myth into the fabric of right now. So enter the forest of the imagination, and we'll see what lights up when we step into the dark. Picture this, a circle of people in a dark moon night. Stories that are being passed hand to hand, tea, some incense. Tales of bruja and banshee of Salem and Scotland, about grandmothers and goddesses. And somewhere between the laughter and the emotion stuck at the back of our throats, let's remember what is sacred. That's the alchemy. That is the magic. That is what I am inviting you into. This episode is a little bit of a clearing in the woods. It's a fire that we build before we start on our path. It is in this moment where we call the ancestors, the goddesses, the witches, the grandmothers, yes, all of them, and we ask them for their blessing. So let's take a breath and step closer to the flames. These ones will not burn you. Let your eyes adjust to the dark for the stories that wait there. This is the threshold. And beyond it, there's a spiral journey from myth to memory, from history to imagination, from the collective wound into personal magic. The night is dark, but it is full of stars. The circle is cast. The old tales are stirring. Will you enter? Welcome, dear listener, to this circle. Let us begin. I'll bring you different tales. Join me for the next episode where we will uncover the first story, look at the archetypes, the symbols, the history, the meaning, and the magic. I'll wait for you there. I'm Marianna Portela, and you've listened to Goddess, Witch, Woman, a Healing Stories podcast.